I've become a character in one of those cliché novels, the fake heir in a story about a long-lost son. According to the script, I'm supposed to get humiliated by the real heir, have my fiancée break our engagement, and be cast out by the family. But instead, I'm flipping the script. Don't worry, I'll leave immediately. But you're still giving me the shares we agreed on. Who has time to star in your trashy reality TV drama? I casually wave my phone, which holds a treasure trove of the company's dirty little secrets. The moment the money is mine, I'm out the door and signing a contract marriage with a hotshot female CEO. $1 million a month in pocket money. What's that? Her old flame is back in town? No problem. Just make sure the final payment clears, okay? Forget all that nonsense about true love. Forget the drama of chasing someone who left you. Forget the angst and the tearful regrets. It's all garbage. None of it matters. Staring at the string of zeros in my bank account, I'm grinning so wide my face hurts. The only other place I've seen this many zeros is on a report from the National Weather Service. 1. The bowl of artisanal oatmeal in front of me is disappointingly watery. It's obvious the kitchen staff, those masters of sucking up, heard the Sterling family's real son was coming home. They've already started cutting corners on the imposter. I stir the slop around with my spoon. My appetite is gone. I'm still processing the memories that flooded my brain a month ago. A fake heir, a real heir, a powerful family's secrets, humiliation, a broken engagement, and an ending where I die broke and alone on the streets. My name is Ethan Vance, and I'm the unlucky bastard cast as the fake heir. According to the novel's plot, today is the beginning of the end. Leo Sterling, the real heir who's been lost for 18 years, is about to be welcomed home. Meanwhile, I, the cuckoo in the nest, am destined to make a series of spectacularly dumb decisions, amplified by Leo's main character plot armor, until I've completely ruined my own life. A soft knock on the door. Arthur, the butler, appears, his face as impeccably stern as always. Mr. Vance, Mr. and Mrs. Sterling have requested your presence in the study. The title has already shifted from young master to Mr. Vance. I set the bowl down, my movements calm and deliberate. Walking into my closet, I scan the rows of custom-tailored suits and designer casual wear. A small smile plays on my lips. If I'm leaving, I'm not leaving empty-handed. After all, it's a sin to let a good opportunity go to waste. The atmosphere in the study is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Mr. Sterling sits behind a massive mahogany desk, his expression grave. Mrs. Sterling is beside him, her gaze on me a complicated mix of emotions, tinged with a new, unmistakable distance. Standing next to them is a teenager in a faded pair of jeans and an old t-shirt. There's a clear resemblance to Mr. Sterling in his features. This must be Leo. He looks at me with a blend of curiosity and awkwardness, barely suppressing the triumphant glee of someone whose life is about to change forever. Ethan, Mr. Sterling begins, his voice devoid of warmth, a subtle warning in its tone. This is Leo, our biological son. He's had a difficult life. I nod, arranging my features into a mask of appropriate surprise, which then melts into understanding and a hint of sadness. Understand, Dad. Mom, you have to play the part. From now on, Leo will be living here, Mr. Sterling continues. As for you, I get it. I cut in smoothly, my tone sincere. Leo has suffered for years out there. Now that he's back, everything in this house rightfully belongs to him. I'll move out as soon as possible to avoid causing any trouble. My seamless acceptance and display of profound understanding leave both Mr. and Mrs. Sterling momentarily speechless. The speech they had prepared is stuck in their throats. Leo, too, looks at me with surprise. However, my tone shifts, and I lock eyes with Mr. Sterling. Dad, you remember the Sterling Corp. Shares my grandmother left me when I was a kid, right? And that condo on the Upper East Side? Those are still in my name, correct. 2. The Sterling family matriarch had adored the original Ethan. She had signed over company shares and property to him when he was just a boy. It wasn't a controlling stake, only 5%, but the annual dividends were substantial. The Upper East Side condo was worth millions. This was all legally his property. In the original story, the protagonist was so devastated he never brought it up, and the Sterlings quietly absorbed it all back. Mr. Sterling's brow furrows. He clearly didn't expect me to bring this up. He hesitates, probably wanting to get rid of me as quickly as possible. Well, there's no rush. We can handle that. I smile. Oh, but there's a rush, Dad. I draw out the word. You know how it is? A man can't rest easy until the money is in his account. And when a man can't sleep, his mind might wander and his tongue might slip. He could say something. Unfortunate. My smile doesn't waver. The Sterlings don't support freeloaders, especially not a fake one. Over the years, I was involved in numerous projects for Sterling Corp. I know exactly where all the bodies are buried. Mr. Sterling's face darkens. Are you threatening me, boy? My gaze doesn't falter. Just then, Mrs. Sterling chimes in, dabbing at her eyes. Ethan, darling, I know this is hard for you. It's breaking my heart. I remember when you first came to us, just a little boy, so small and grubby, but so sweet it hurt to look at you. She launches into a story about the past, about how much they've always loved me. The truth is, while they raised me, it was with a very specific purpose. The circumstances of the real heir's disappearance were murky at best. The Sterling family has many enemies, and over the years, I, the fake heir, served as the perfect decoy, absorbing misfortunes meant for the real one. I was kidnapped, bullied, and targeted. It's a miracle I survived it all. Living in this house meant living under a microscope. If my grades slipped, I'd be forced to kneel outside for hours, whether it was raining, freezing, or scorching hot. Once I was old enough, I was put to work at the company like a corporate drone, working insane hours for no salary. They treated me worse than an unpaid intern. But the original Ethan was conditioned to accept it. His values were so warped he thought it was all a sign of the Sterlings' high expectations for him. Of course, their strategy of pairing every punishment with a hollow compliment helped. They were constantly whispering in his ear about how good they were to him. Is it any wonder his mental health was a wreck? But I'm not that weak-willed kid. A few crocodile tears and emotional appeal won't work on me. Mom, I rush over, letting out a theatrical wail and wiping my face all over her expensive silk blouse. She flinches with disgust, but forces herself to endure it. Then I won't leave you, I declare. I'll stay and take care of you and Dad forever. Before Mrs. Sterling can respond, someone else objects. Leo, the real heir, scowls. No way. You've been freeloading for years. You can't stay. He turns to his mother. Mom, I'm your real son. Don't be a fool. Get rid of him. As Mrs. Sterling opens her mouth to say something, I pull away abruptly. Leo's right. I shouldn't occupy this position any longer. Glad you know your place, Leo scoffs. I look back at Mr. Sterling, who still seems hesitant. You aren't thinking of denying me what's mine, are you? I lean in and whisper with a smile. He looks cornered. What kind of nonsense is that? Of course I wouldn't take a kid's money. Great. I walk over to a nearby sofa and pick up my phone, then gasp dramatically. Oh no, I was live streaming this whole thing to my private Instagram, and I forgot to turn it off. Whoops. I glance at Mr. Sterling. I guess that means the last few minutes are. He jumps to his feet, about to lunge for my phone. I hold it up just out of reach, and he freezes. Of course, it's yours, he says through gritted teeth. Thanks, Dad, I say, flashing a grateful smile. Also, the small investments I made over the years with my allowance and dividends are in my personal accounts. I'll be managing those myself. Mr. Sterling waves a dismissive hand, not paying much attention. He probably assumes that 20-something's small investments don't amount to much. He's wrong. Before this life, I was a finance guy. I used that seed money to play the market and get in on a few early-stage startups. The number in my account is now substantial. It's not Sterling family-level wealth, but it's more than enough for me to live very, very comfortably. In my engagement to Ms. Davenport, I look at Mrs. Sterling. I don't think Isabella and I are a good match. It's probably best to call off. After all, Leo is the rightful heir to the Sterling name. I'm sure the Davenports would prefer their daughter be married to him. I let the suggestion hang in the air. Mrs. Sterling's expression shifts. I've clearly hit a nerve. The Davenports are important business partners. The marriage alliance should naturally be with the true heir. Ethan, it's good that you can think so maturely, she says, her tone softening considerably. This is going more smoothly than I expected. Back in my room, I immediately start gathering my financial documents and contact my lawyer to handle the transfer of the shares and property. I also move all my liquid assets into new accounts. My phone rings. The name, Isabella Davenport, flashes on the screen. My nominal fiancée, a classic trust fund princess who has never shown me an ounce of kindness. I answer, put on speaker, and continue packing. Ethan Vance, how dare you suggest ending our engagement? Who do you think you are? If anyone's going to end it, it's me, Isabella Davenport. Her shrill voice screeches from the phone. News travels fast. It seems the Sterlings are eager to push me out. My voice is calm, with a lazy smile in it. You're right. I'm not worthy of you, Ms. Davenport. That's why I'm getting out of your way. You and Leo look great together, a match made in heaven. I wish you all the best. There's a stunned silence on the other end. She clearly didn't expect this reaction. Finally, she sputters. You asshole. This asshole wishes you happiness. I say cheerfully, then hang up and block her number. Perfect. Peace and quiet. As I drag a single, lightweight suitcase out of the Sterling mansion, no one is there to see me off. The setting sun casts a long shadow behind me. I don't care. The world is wide. I have money and time. Only a fool would stick around to be a side character in their family drama. 3. I check into a luxury hotel suite in Midtown and enjoy a few days of glorious solitude. No one to please, no ridiculous wealthy heir persona to maintain. It's bliss. A few days later, I attend a business reception. I was invited as a private investor, mainly to scope out new opportunities to make more money. The event is a sea of champagne flutes and 4 smiles. I'm nursing a glass in a quiet corner, utterly bored when my eyes land on her. Victoria Blackwood, the CEO of Blackwood Industries. She's wearing a sharply tailored black suit, her expression cool and refined, radiating an intimidating, unapproachable aura. She's speaking with a few men who look like banking executives, her demeanor polite but distant. I remember her. She was mentioned briefly in the novel, a brilliant business prodigy with a completely blank love life. Apparently, she had a long-lost love, the one that got away, living overseas. A switch flips in my head. I straighten my already perfect shirt collar, pick up my champagne flute, and walk directly toward her. Weaving through the crowd, ignoring the men trying to get her attention, I stop a respectable foot away from her. Victoria looks up, her eyes calm and appraising. Ms. Blackwood, a pleasure, I say, raising my glass. And you are. Her voice is crisp, like ice water. Ethan Vance. You might have heard of me. The one who just parted ways with the Sterling family. I introduce myself with complete frankness. A flicker of mild surprise crosses her face, quickly replaced by understanding. The story of the Sterling heirs was no secret in these circles. Is there something I can help you with? She asks, her words concise. I smile, lean in slightly, and lower my voice so only she can hear. I hear you've been having some family-related troubles recently, that you need a suitable partner to fend off unwanted complications. I think we can make a mutually beneficial arrangement. In the original story, after being thrown out, the fake heir was destitute. The real heir made sure no reputable company would hire him. He ended up washing dishes in a restaurant and driving for Uber at night. One night, he picked up Victoria Blackwood. It turned out he bore a striking resemblance to her old flame. At the time, Victoria was being relentlessly pressured by her family to get married. She had just had a huge fight with them and was drowning her sorrows at a bar when she ran into him. He was the perfect candidate. He was handsome, for one, and he had proven his competence working on several impressive projects at Sterling Corp. A fact her parents would appreciate. They care more about talent and capability than family name. He was capable, yet easy to control. And most importantly, he looked like the one that got away. Having said my piece, I watch her reaction. Better to offer my services now and seize the initiative than wait for her to find me. Victoria's expression finally shows a subtle shift. She studies me for a few long seconds, as if calculating my value. The satisfaction in her eyes, however, is hard to miss. And why should I choose you? She asks. Because I know exactly what this is, and I need the job. I meet her gaze without flinching. Besides, I clean up well. As a high-value, low-maintenance accessory, I'm a pretty good deal. Victoria is silent for a moment. Just as I'm thinking I've miscalculated and she's about to call security, her lips part. My office. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Done. 4. Victoria Blackwood's office is even colder than she is. A stark palette of black, white, and gray, everything in its perfect place. The contract marriage is for a term of 1 year. After all, her old flame is due back by then. The terms, $500,000 a month as an allowance, and a separate residence provided. My job is to act as her husband whenever required, attending events and dealing with her family. I am to play the role of a devoted partner. No sharing a bed, no interfering in each other's private lives. The contract terminates automatically at the end of the year. You're very efficient, Ms. Blackwood, I say after scanning the terms and sign my name with a flourish. And so, I move into the apartment Victoria provided and begin my career as a contract husband. To be fair, she's an excellent boss. The pay is great, and she's low maintenance. Outside of necessary appearances, she almost never contacts me. We're like strangers who happen to be roommates, maintaining a polite, professional distance. Occasionally, late at night, I'll bump into her in the kitchen getting a glass of water, a shadow of exhaustion on her face. I'll give a slight nod and head back to my room. No need for small talk. Over time, some interaction is inevitable. I accompany her to family dinners to fend off relatives asking when they're going to have kids. I run interference at corporate galas, blocking business associates trying to get her drunk. Sometimes, when she works late, her driver will call me, and I'll be tasked with carrying a slightly tipsy CEO home. She's a quiet drunk. She doesn't make a scene. She just gets quieter than usual, sometimes leaning against the car window, silently watching the city lights stream by. Her profile, illuminated by the neon glow, looks almost fragile. One time, her chronic stomach issues flared up. She was pale, doubled over in pain, and covered in a cold sweat. I happened to be home. Without a second thought, I piggybacked her and ran to the nearest hospital. I handled everything: registration, picking up prescriptions, and watching over her as the 4 dripped. When she woke up, she saw me asleep, slumped over the side of her bed. Her expression was complicated. "Thank you," she said. It was the first time she'd spoken to me in a tone that wasn't strictly business. I rubbed my tired eyes and grinned. "Don't mention it, Ms. Blackwood. Ensuring the health and safety of my employer is part of the contract." I rubbed my hands together like a fly. "Of course, if you feel really guilty, a bonus would be the best way to show it. I'm not picky." I think she almost smiled but managed to suppress it. She just turned her head away and let out a soft "See? This boss is great." The atmosphere between us seemed to change, just a little. Our relationship was no longer so distant. She started smiling more often, complaining to me about her workload and the old-fashioned board members who gave her hell. I would just pour her a cup of hot tea and listen quietly, nodding at the right moments. Sometimes, when I was bored, I'd cook. Victoria was shocked that a supposed trust fund kid knew his way around a kitchen. "Try it," I said, handing her a fork. She hesitated, but took it. After one bite, her eyes lit up. From then on, she would drop not-so-subtle hints about wanting me to cook for her. "No problem, but it'll cost you." To my surprise, she'd nod while chewing. "Done." I was stunned. "For real? Best boss ever," I praised. A pleased smile spread across her face. After that, she became even more brazen. She used to visit the apartment maybe once a month. Now, she was there 3 times a week, using the excuse that it was closer to the office. One time I joked, "Shouldn't you be paying rent then?" She laughed. "What? You're my property too. Why would I pay rent?" I just smiled and said nothing. She then stole the foot basin I had just prepared for myself, filled with carefully selected herbal remedies. "This is mine too." She had changed. She smiled more, which was good. A happy boss is better than a perpetually scowling one. A happy boss might even give out bonuses. I needed to start dropping hints. I scurried over to her like an eager puppy. "Boss, how about a massage? My skills are top-notch." I would never have dared say this before. In the past, getting too close would have earned me a death glare. But now she just shrugged, closed her eyes, and settled back comfortably. That was my cue. With a slightly devious grin, I got to work, my hands starting on her shoulders while my mouth started hinting about a raise. "Done," Victoria said, her voice full of authority. I could feel my nose practically flare with excitement. "You're the best, boss." She seemed to enjoy the compliment, her smile widening. Another raise. Unbelievable. My hands worked even more diligently. 5. Then one day, Victoria said to me, "Ethan, would you consider being my executive assistant?" Her gaze was sincere. "It's a waste of your talents to be doing this." I scoffed internally. Talents? I have only one goal in life: to be a kept man and make money while lying down. Actually work? No way. $2 million a month, she offered. Deal. And just like that, I became Victoria Blackwood's executive assistant, handling everything from her schedule and meetings to project planning. She was deeply satisfied with my performance. My sudden appearance in a high-level position had caused some resentment, but after a few successful projects, the dissenters had to admit I was good. Someone, however, was not happy. My dear brother, Leo Sterling, seemed to have a problem with my success. Ever since the news of my marriage to Victoria broke, he'd been blowing up my phone. "How is this possible? How could someone like you be with Victoria Blackwood? I don't believe it." I counted. 542 texts. Anyone who didn't know better would think he had a crush on me. And now, here he was, looking for trouble. I was at the mall with Victoria. She had gone to the restroom, and I was waiting outside. Well, look who it is. If it isn't the great Mr. Vance. The sarcastic voice belonged to Leo Sterling. He sauntered over, flanked by a group of guys who used to be my sycophants. One of them sneered, "Hey, you can't call him that anymore. He's the fake, remember?" He laughed, and the others joined in. So I laughed too. Their laughter died. They stared at me, confused. "What are you laughing at?" one of them demanded. I shrugged. When I see a few dogs barking and wagging their tails at me, am I supposed to yell back? Their faces turned ugly. Leo's voice was low and angry. "Don't get cocky. You just latched onto Victoria Blackwood. Let me tell you, you're just a toy to her. You really think you're something special." The jealousy was practically radiating off him. It was no secret he had a thing for Victoria. He had tried to accidentally run into her on several occasions, only to be met with a cold, dismissive stare. Even announcing his status as the true Sterling heir had only earned him a bored. "Oh, and you are." And now, I was the one close to her, living with her. He was green with envy. I just smirked at him. Better to be a toy than someone who can't even get played with. His face turned a shade darker. The guy was a joke. After returning to the family, he did nothing but loaf around. The Sterlings had high hopes of grooming him to take over, but he managed to scare off every tutor they hired. I heard Mr. Sterling was so angry he ended up in the hospital. And lately, it seems Sterling Corp. was in serious trouble. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling had started sending me vague, sentimental messages, hinting that they missed me. They were trying to lure me back, saying the company couldn't survive without me and that it would all be mine one day. Huh, did they take me for a fool? They only came crawling back because their golden boy was a bust, and they saw me cozying up to the far more powerful Blackwood family. I brought my attention back to the present. Leo was fuming. "Enjoy it while it lasts. Pride comes before a fall." A fall? I stepped closer to him. He flinched and stumbled back. What? What do you want?" I chuckled and clapped him on the shoulder. "You know, that talk of a fall reminds me of something." His expression soured. "How's that injury from last week healing up?" I squeezed his shoulder and he winced. "Next time you want to rough me up, hire professionals. Doing it yourself is just tacky." Last week, he and his buddies had tried to jump me on my way home, wearing ski masks like a bunch of amateur thugs. But years of kickboxing training weren't for nothing. I made short work of them and tossed them into a dumpster. Leo looked mortified. I gave him a little shove, and he stumbled back into his friends. "You," he sputtered, pointing a finger at me. "Is there a problem here?" A cool voice cut through the tension. Victoria, smelling faintly of expensive perfume, appeared at my side. Leo's demeanor changed instantly. His parents must have given him strict orders, probably after cutting off his allowance. "Ms. Blackwood, are you here to harass my husband?" Victoria asked flatly. Leo was dumbfounded. Victoria, who had never given him the time of day, was now being so protective of me. He forced a laugh. "Of course not. We were just—" "Then get lost," Victoria said, linking her arm through mine. Leo's face was a mask of humiliation. He turned and stormed away, his cronies scrambling after him. "Let's go." Feeling her arm still linked with mine after they were gone, I cleared my throat. Victoria turned to me, a flicker of concern on her face. Is your throat bothering you? Seriously? Is she still in character? Just as I was about to say something, another figure rushed toward us. A familiar one. Isabella Davenport. Her eyes were red-rimmed as she stared at Victoria's arm looped through mine. Ethan, I can't believe you're this kind of person, she accused, tears welling up. You told me you'd take care of me forever. You broke your promise. Victoria Froneth. And you are? I'm Ethan's fiancée, Isabella yelled. When the news of my marriage to Victoria broke, Isabella had spammed me with messages just like Leo. They started with mockery and warnings about being used, then shifted to confusion and anger. What was this new act? Victoria scoffed. All right, I remember you. Isabella's face brightened. Good. Now, let him go. So what? Victoria cut her off mercilessly. Your engagement was voided a long time ago. Your fiancé is that pathetic guy who just ran off. Why are you still clinging to my Ethan? Isabella tried to argue. But I was. And who gave you the right to scream at me in public? Victoria's voice dropped, becoming dangerously cold. Your own father shows me more respect than that. Isabella deflated completely. She turned her tear-streaked face to me, her voice pleading. Ethan, the truth is, I've always loved you. I was only cold to you because I was shy. You were so perfect, and I felt so inadequate. I was afraid you'd leave me. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't want to marry that other guy. I don't, she begged. I thought when you were thrown out, I could finally be the one to help you, to be your equal. She looked at Victoria. Can you please just give us a moment alone? Please. Victoria sighed and glanced at me. I shook my head. Trying to play games in front of my boss? That's just unprofessional. I looked at Isabella, my voice cold. If you think constant mockery and contempt is your way of showing love, then there's nothing more to say. We have nothing to discuss. I took Victoria's arm and turned to leave. Behind me, I could hear Isabella's heartbroken sobs. Outside, in the cool air, Victoria asked, Are you sure you don't want to go back? I won't dock your pay. I opened the car door for her. No need. I never go backward. Victoria just nodded, a thoughtful look on her face. 6. Time flew by. As the one-year contract neared its end, Victoria's legendary old flame, Julian Croft, returned. The power of the novel's plot began to assert itself. Victoria started coming home less and less, and when she did, she seemed distracted. One weekend morning, she sat across from me, sipping her coffee. Her tone was flat, devoid of emotion. Julian is back in the country. Our contract. We won't be renewing it when it expires next month. I was in the middle of a bagel. I finished chewing, took a gulp of coffee, and said, Okay, understood, boss. I gave her a thumbs up. I'll start packing my things. Just make sure the final payment hits my account. Okay? Victoria stared at me, searching my face for some other emotion, but found nothing. She looked down, her long eyelashes casting shadows on her cheeks. Fine. I was efficient. I started packing that same day. I didn't have much, and most of it was bought with her money anyway, so leaving it behind was no big deal. I stuffed my personal belongings into the same suitcase I had arrived with. When Victoria came home that evening, she found me standing in the living room with my suitcase. So soon? She asked, a slight frown on her face. Mr. Croft is back. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to stay here, I said with a considerate smile. Best to avoid any misunderstandings that might get in the way of you two rekindling things. Victoria opened her mouth as if to say something, but all that came out was, You can stay in the apartment until the contract officially ends. No, I've already found a new place, I declined politely. Ms. Blackwood, it's been a pleasure doing business with you. If we see each other around, let's still be friends. I held out my hand. Victoria looked at it, hesitating for a second before shaking it. Her fingertips were cool. Goodbye, Ethan. Goodbye. I dragged my suitcase into the elevator without a backward glance. Just as the door slid shut, I saw her through the closing gap, still standing in the same spot. In a vast, empty living room, she looked lonely. Not my problem. She's just my ex-boss. 7. My new place was another sprawling penthouse in the city center, purchased with the money I'd leveraged from the Sterlings. I was a free man again. I spent my days playing the stock market, scouting new projects at industry events, and generally living a life of leisure. It was glorious. Occasionally, I'd hear rumors about Victoria and Julian, a golden couple reunited, a potential merger between Blackwood Industries and the Croft family empire. I scoffed at it. I had met Julian. He had the suave act down, but you could see the cold calculation in his eyes. I wondered if Victoria could handle him. Then again, not my business. These were choices. I was enjoying my life, but I couldn't seem to avoid Victoria. She would coincidentally be in my neighborhood. Then she would casually tell me about her recent troubles. I feel like Julian has changed, she said, holding a wine glass as we sat in a small bistro. He's become someone I don't recognize. I kept looking around nervously. Julian was a notoriously jealous man. If he saw us, he'd cause trouble for me again. Last week, I was invited to a charity gala and saw Victoria there. She was sitting alone in a corner, looking dazed and holding her stomach as if in pain. Julian, meanwhile, was working the room, schmoozing with high-powered executives, a greedy look on his face. I knew the story. Julian had returned from abroad and was desperate to make a name for himself, to step out of the shadow of his more successful older brother. He looked down on small investments and was obsessed with landing a major deal. Victoria had pulled strings to even get him into this event. I sighed and prepared to leave. We could be friends, but I hated drama. I was about to slip away when some idiot called out my name. Like a bloodhound, Victoria's head snapped up, and her eyes found me. Ethan. Her face lit up as she walked toward me. So much for a clean getaway. We chatted for a few minutes while I racked my brain for an excuse to leave. Suddenly, I felt a cold stare on me. Julian was walking over, positioning himself between me and Victoria. Perfect. My exit strategy had just arrived. His voice was a low, theatrical rumble. A replacement should know his place. Now that I'm back, don't think you can still hang around. Mr. Croft, a pleasure. You look as dashing and debonair as the rumors say. I cut him off, leaving him momentarily stunned. You and Ms. Blackwood are a perfect match. I wish you a lifetime of happiness and success. Well, I must be going. I turned and made a beeline for the exit. Victoria took a step as if to follow, but stopped herself. At the door, I glanced back. Julian was muttering something to Victoria and handed her a slice of mango cake before eagerly rejoining his conversation with the executives. Huh, didn't he know she was allergic to mango? So unprofessional. Doesn't he know that all powerful CEOs in these stories have some kind of convenient medical issue, like an allergy or a weak stomach? Victoria clearly did. Oh well, not my problem. 8. I didn't see Julian, so I let out a long breath. Victoria put down her glass, her eyes fixed on me. I know you're the one who had the waiter bring me stomach medicine at the gala that night. I checked my watch. It was getting late, and she was still trying to pull on my heartstrings. I sighed. What a classic capitalist. Still trying to emotionally manipulate me for some free labor. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too. Keep her old flame to satisfy her past desires and keep me on the hook because I catered to her needs. The woman was insatiable. Look at the facts. It was a business transaction. She paid, I provided a service. It was simple. Why did she have to make it so complicated? I was getting annoyed. If I were an ugly guy, or just a butler, would she be laying on the sentiment so thick? If Julian actually paid attention to her needs, would she be here with me? To her, I was just the second best option, a convenient fallback. She was only interested because I had been good to her. The moment someone better came along, her attention would shift. Unless she had actually fallen for me. Hilarious. I stood up. Ms. Blackwood, it's getting late. A lonely expression crossed her face as she stood up as well. Yes. I waved with a smile. Let's grab dinner sometime. I've got to run. I turned to leave. How about now? Her voice came from behind me. Damn my big mouth. Victoria grabbed my sleeve. Let's go to your place. I've been craving your cooking. My mind raced, searching for an excuse. Just then a cold voice cut through the air. Victoria. I could have cheered. It was Julian. He walked over, his eyes flicking from me to her. I was wondering where you went. Mom and Dad want to discuss the wedding plans. We need to go home. Victoria's parents had found out about our one-year contract after we divorced. They had just sighed, disappointed in their daughter's choices. They never liked Julian anyway, but Victoria treated him like a treasure. Before they left that day, they had pressed a credit card into my hand. 10 million. Sweet. Julian shot me a cold glare. Some people should stop dreaming. Don't reach for things that are out of your league. He probably expected me to get angry or run away in shame. Instead, I beamed at him. Great. You two have a good talk. Bye-bye. I spun around and practically sprinted away. Their drama was for them to solve. But I couldn't stay here anymore. Not with Victoria, coincidentally, running into me every other day. 9. So I moved. I relocated to a small, charming town in the Pacific Northwest. The air was clean, the scenery was beautiful. I had more than enough money to last several lifetimes. Even if I just lay in bed all day, the interest alone was racking up zeros. But I needed something to do, so I opened a flower shop. It was a long-held dream of mine. Looking at the vibrant, beautiful flowers always lifted my spirits. I opened and closed whenever I felt like it. Sometimes I'd sleep in until the afternoon. I was known around the neighborhood as the owner of the flower shop with the weird hours. His arrangements were unique and beautiful, and the flowers themselves were so fragrant you could smell them from down the block. Life was peaceful. I'd give flowers to the neighbors, and my days passed in quiet contentment. Then one night, after a mind-numbingly boring networking event, I was taking a walk when a sudden downpour started. I didn't have an umbrella and took shelter under a bus stop awning. The street was a blur of rushing pedestrians. And then I saw her, a girl in a cheap, cartoon print poncho, clutching a thick stack of flyers. She was soaked, her hair plastered to her forehead. She looked miserable, but her eyes were bright, like stars washed clean by the rain. A few sketchy-looking guys swaggered over, whistling and surrounding her. Hey there, little lady. Handing out flyers. Why don't you hang out with us for a bit, and we'll help you out? The girl clutched her flyers tighter and took a step back, her eyes wary. Please leave me alone. I didn't want to get involved, but seeing her hands tremble slightly despite her brave face, I sighed and walked over. Gentlemen, harassing a young woman? Not a good look, I said, stepping between her and the creeps. I might have been wearing a soaked suit, but my height and a cold stare still carried some weight. The guys looked me over, muttered a few curses, and decided I wasn't worth the trouble. They shuffled off. The girl let out a breath of relief and looked up at me, her eyes shining even brighter. Thank you. Don't mention it. I nodded, ready to go back to waiting for the rain to stop. I hadn't eaten much at the event, and my stomach chose that moment to let out an embarrassing growl. Her eyes lit up. She reached into her bag and pulled out a steamed bun, still warm and carefully wrapped in a plastic bag. She held it out to me. Here, you should have this. I just bought it. I haven't touched it. The bun was white and fluffy, steam rising from it in the cold night air. It smelled wonderful. I looked into her bright, earnest eyes and took it. Thanks. The rain started to let up. She took off her poncho, revealing a faded t-shirt and jeans underneath. She neatly rearranged her flyers, gave me another smile, and ran off into the drizzle. After that, I started seeing her everywhere. She worked at a coffee shop where I met with clients. She was a promoter at a mall I happened to be walking through. Her name was Chloe Miller. She told me she was from a small town, working to save up for community college. She was always full of energy, like a resilient sunflower fighting to grow in a concrete jungle. She would tell me funny stories from her job, complain about difficult customers, and talk about her dream of getting a degree, her eyes sparkling. She'd treat me to street food, and I'd treat her to fancy dinners in return. At first, she refused, saying it was a waste of money. I told her it was an investment she'd have to pay back when she made it big. Only then did she shyly accept. I helped her pay off her back rent and enrolled her in a reputable college prep course. She cried, refusing the money, so I told her it was a loan with interest. She finally laughed through her tears and promised she would pay me back. We spent more time together. She picked up another job, helping me out in my flower shop. These flowers are so beautiful, she'd exclaim, her eyes wide with wonder. I'd be lounging in my chair, scrolling through my phone. Pick whichever one you like. But she would just smile, gently lean in to smell the blossoms, and say, "Thank you, Ethan." I wouldn't reply, just keep my eyes on my phone. Chloe was a fast learner. Every day, she would excitedly share little stories from her life. She was a whirlwind of positive energy. Life went on like this. Or did it? Maybe it all changed on that one day. 10. That day, I went to the mall to pick her up from work without telling her. As I approached the service corridor, I heard her voice, mixed with another girl's, and peals of laughter. So, how's the progress with the fake heir? The bet ends in a month. It was Chloe's voice, but with a smug, flippant tone I had never heard before. What's the rush? Don't worry, I've got this in the bag. Huh, you're amazing. Your act is so convincing. Of course. Do you know who I am? All I have to do is act pure and pitiful, and he's hooked. Haha, you're right. All men fall for that. The innocent, strong girl who needs saving. It's like their kryptonite. They kept laughing. I sighed. I was planning on letting this play out a little longer. But now that I'd heard this, the game was over. My face was blank as I turned and walked out of the mall. The next day, Chloe asked to meet, saying she just got paid and wanted to treat me to dinner to thank me. I picked the location, a high-end restaurant she could never afford. She showed up in a new but cheap-looking dress, sitting awkwardly across from me. Ethan, this place. It must be so expensive, she whispered. I swirled the red wine in my glass and smiled at her. Don't worry, you're not paying. She froze. I held up my glass. Ms. Miller, or should I call you Ms. Lancaster? The heiress of the Lancaster family from Connecticut, slumming it to win a bet with your friends. How's that going for you? Chloe, no, Chloe Lancaster's face went deathly pale. You, how'd I know? I finished for her, my smile never faltering. I leaned back in my chair and pointed to the necklace partially hidden by her collar. If you're going to play the part of poor girl, you should at least commit to the costume. The necklace was worth a small fortune. She had been wearing it the first time we met. When I saw her coincidentally showing up everywhere, I got curious. I decided to play along and see what she was up to. It was a disappointingly boring game. Your acting is terrible, I said, critiquing her performance. You should have taken some classes before trying to pull this off. I listed her mistakes. She couldn't identify common groceries. She knew every luxury brand by name. The first time I took her to a cheap diner, her disgust was written all over her face. She tried to cook for me once and nearly burned the kitchen down. She thought she was being clever, but to me, she was a walking contradiction. Chloe looked sick. She opened her mouth. Ethan, let me explain. Explain that you weren't intentionally deceiving me. I laughed and tossed a few photos onto the table. Chloe's face turned ashen. This was to get revenge for Leo Sterling, wasn't it? You must really like him. The photos were of the two of them at the same university. They had known each other for a long time. At Leo's urging, Chloe had decided to get revenge on his behalf, making a bet with her friends that she could make me fall for her, only to dump me spectacularly and reveal her true identity, leaving me completely broken. Honestly, it was a pathetic plan. No, Ethan. Chloe tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come. Everything I said was true. Her eyes started to well up with tears. Ethan, I admit that was the plan at first. But as I got to know you, I started to like. Easy. Her phone, sitting on the table, lit up. She panicked, trying to decline the call, but her fumbling fingers hit the answer button instead. A familiar voice boomed from the speaker. Chloe, how's it going with that loser Ethan? Did you make him cry and beg for you yet? It was Leo. It's all his fault. My parents are always comparing me to him. Damn it, who cares? We're rich. Why can't I spend money and slack off? It's all going to be mine anyway. Remember to give me a heads up before you dump him. I want to bring some guys to take pictures. After his rant, there was silence from our end. Chloe, why aren't you talking? Chloe was trembling. Leo, I don't think you should talk about Ethan like that. He's actually, maybe you two should try to make up. I can. Leo sounded furious. What are you talking about? You were the one who said playing him would be fun. You said just looking at him made you sick. Weren't you just complaining to me about him the other day? Chloe looked even more frantic, tears now streaming down her face. She looked up at me, her expression pleading. I just calmly took a sip of my wine, completely unbothered. Ethan, you have to listen. Wait, is Ethan there? Chloe, what are you doing? Leo roared from the phone. Shut up. Chloe screamed, then burst into tears, a perfect picture of heartbroken misery. Chloe, Leo sounded betrayed. Shut up, she shrieked, drawing stares from other diners. She ignored them, her eyes locked on me. I really did fall for you. I was just too proud to admit it, so I said all those awful things to my friends. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. She gave a long, rambling speech. I put down my glass and looked at her. So, her eyes filled with hope. I spoke each word clearly. Is this also part of the performance? Much improved, I have to say. Chloe completely fell apart, her face pale, her lips trembling. No, that's not it. I don't have time for these games. We're done. I checked my watch and stood to leave. Chloe reached for me, but a single cold look from me made her freeze. And with that, I left the restaurant, the sound of her sobbing fading behind me. Let her cry. She'll get over it. In time, she'll forget all about this and fall for someone else. That's how people are. There's no wound that time can't heal. 11. How boring. After being kicked to the curb by society and emotionally manipulated, I needed something pure to cleanse my soul. Like making money. I threw myself back into the world of high-stakes investment, my methods becoming more ruthless. In the finance world, I earned a nickname, the vulture. If I was interested in a project, no one dared compete. If I shorted a company's stock, everyone ran for the hills. During this time, Victoria approached me once. We were at a project negotiation, and she was representing a partner firm. After the meeting, she caught me in the hallway. Ethan, I stopped and turned, my tone polite but distant. Ms. Blackwood, can I help you with something? She looked at me, a familiar weariness in her cool eyes. Why have you been avoiding? Are you doing okay? She stopped herself before she could say the word avoiding. Couldn't be better, thanks to you, I said with a slight smile. About Julian and me, she started. I raised an eyebrow. Ms. Blackwood, whatever is going on between you and Mr. Croft has nothing to do with me. She was silent for a moment, then lowered her voice. The contract, if you want, we can renew it. I almost laughed out loud. So, things with her old flame weren't going well. And now she remembered the convenient, high-value shield? Thanks, but no thanks, Ms. Blackwood, I said, my smile tightening. I decided to make things crystal clear. I'm not interested in playing the part of a husband anymore. After all, I can't keep getting in the way of you finding true love, can I? With a slight nod, I turned and walked away, not giving her a chance to reply. The whole winning back at all costs drama? Sorry, my stage is closed. 12. Life went on. During a corporate acquisition, I met a woman named Aria Cole. She ran a small, successful design studio. She was sharp, witty, and knew exactly what she wanted. We just clicked. We'd grab drinks, complain about impossible clients, and analyze market trends together. She admired my business acumen, and I loved her directness and clarity. The more time we spent together, the more our effortless chemistry grew. It was a feeling I had never experienced with Victoria or the others. After a celebratory dinner for a closed deal, I was driving her home. In the car, I asked her, "Want to give this a try?" She looked at me, her eyes bright in the darkness. A smile played on her lips, but she tried to look nonchalant as she turned her head away, her hand gripping mine tightly. Sure, let's give it a try. We started dating. It was an easy, comfortable relationship. We were independent, but supported each other. She would bring me a glass of warm milk when I was up late analyzing stocks, and I would quietly solve any business problems her studio ran into. I even started to think that maybe, after all the nonsense I'd been through, this was the universe's way of paying me back. One day, Aria told me she wanted me to meet her family. "My parents really want to meet you," she murmured, nestled in my arms. I agreed immediately. It's meeting the parents, not facing a firing squad. Aria's family lived in an upscale, gated community. As I rang the doorbell, I straightened my tie and joked, "I'm a little nervous. What if your dad thinks I'm not good enough for his little girl?" Aria rolled her eyes. "Please, the vulture doesn't get nervous." The door opened. Aunt Aria, Mom was just. The person who opened the door stopped mid-sentence when they saw me. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Standing in the doorway was none other than Julian Croft. "Why are you with my aunt?" I gave him a cheerful wave. "We meet again." Nephew. 13. Julian looked like he'd seen a ghost. Aria was his maternal grandparents' adopted daughter, making her his aunt, despite only being a few years older than him. "Nephew," Julian seethed. Aria, ever the pragmatist, just burst out laughing when she understood the connection. "Don't worry about it. It's better that we all know each other." She had a point. Whatever was going on between Victoria and Julian had clearly cooled off. Their wedding was never mentioned again. So our family tree, while awkward, wasn't a complete disaster. She patted a stunned Julian on the shoulder. "You be nice to your new uncle. You hear?" she said, linking her arm through mine and leading me inside, leaving Julian frozen on the doorstep. We stepped into a house filled with laughter. "Mr. and Mrs. Cole." I began, but the words died in my throat. I shot a look at Arya. "Seriously? You didn't think to mention they would be here?" Sitting in the living room were two kind-faced elderly people and a glamorous-looking woman who must have been Julian's mother. That wasn't the problem. The problem was the three other figures on the sofa. Victoria Blackwood, Isabella Davenport, and Chloe Lancaster. What were they all doing here? Arya just smiled serenely and introduced me to her parents. We chatted, and I learned the tangled web of their connections. The Blackwoods were old family friends of the Coles. The Davenports were business partners, and Chloe had been brought along by Victoria. It was a ridiculously complicated social circle. I spent the rest of the evening with a fixed smile on my face, answering her parents' questions while feeling the weight of multiple intense stares. Thankfully, Mr. and Mrs. Cole were warm and welcoming, constantly piling food onto my plate and making me feel at ease. "Your parents are really great," I told Arya later, as she emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel. The sight made my heart skip a beat. She smiled and wrapped her arms around me. "Yeah, they're good people." I was staying in Arya's room, an arrangement I was more than a little excited about. After a quick shower, I came out to find her in bed, reading a book. She patted the empty space beside her with a smile. I practically leaped into bed. Life was good. Afterward, we were both exhausted and fell asleep quickly. I felt unusually tired that night. In a hazy, dreamlike state, I heard familiar voices. "Are you sure this will work?" "Of course." I used a slow-acting sleeping pill. Plus, they're exhausted after. "You know, they won't wake up for hours." "I don't know. If he finds out." "If you won't, I will." "No, I'll do it. I'll go." All I remember is being incredibly tired and having a very strange dream. I woke up the next morning to see Arya's sleeping face, flushed and peaceful. I smiled, but when I tried to get up, a groan escaped my lips. My entire body ached. It felt like my kidneys had been stolen. That was new. I must be out of shape. Shaking off the weird feeling, I watched as Arya woke up and clung to me like a koala. 6 months later, we got married. The wedding was huge. We stood at the altar, exchanging vows and declaring our love for each other. In the crowd, Julian was grinding his teeth. Leo Sterling was scowling, held in place by his parents. At the reception, we went from table to table, toasting our guests. Then we came to that table. Victoria, Isabella, and Chloe stood up, but they waved their hands when we raised our glasses. "We're not really supposed to drink right now," Victoria said with a serene smile. Isabella and Chloe nodded in agreement, looking blissfully happy. A friend at the table joked, "Wow, you three have been eating well. You're all glowing. What's the deal? Are you pregnant or something?" "Ha ha ha." Another friend nudged him. "Dude, don't say that." She apologized to the women, but the three of them just smiled. "It's okay," Victoria said. They raised their teacups to me. "We'll toast with this instead." They were all smiling, their eyes fixed on me with a strange, brilliant light. As they toasted, my gaze drifted downward, and I saw it. Under their elegant dresses, each of them had a small, but distinctly rounded belly.